Welcome to a new podcast, 123 All Ears on Me, an early childhood education podcast hosted by the Maine Association for the Education of Young Children, also known as Maine AEYC. I'm Kaylina Mills, and I'll be your host. Maine AEYC is a regional affiliate of the National Association for the Education of Young Children, also known as NAEYC. Maine AEYC represents early childhood workers across the state of Maine. Our mission is to promote high-quality early learning for each and every child, birth through age 8, by connecting practice, policy, and research. We advance a diverse, dynamic early childhood profession and support all who care for, educate, and work on behalf of young children. In support of our mission, we have two main focus areas: policy and advocacy, and professional learning. For policy and advocacy, we engage in local, state, and federal advocacy, train other educators and partners to participate effectively in leadership and advocacy, and collaborate with state offices to ensure the voices of early childhood educators are being heard. For our professional learning focus, we plan and host the annual statewide ECE conference. Jargon alert! In this podcast, you might hear that sound effect sometimes. Every industry, every organization, every workplace has jargon. And by jargon, I mean words or acronyms or phrases that are frequently used but are meaningless to those outside of the field. We want this podcast to be accessible to and useful for those outside of the early childhood field. So whenever a piece of jargon is mentioned, we will beep it and explain to you what it means. The jargon that I just said was ECE. That acronym stands for Early Childhood Education. Now, back to the podcast. We plan and host the annual statewide ECE conference, run the Teach Scholarship Program for educators across the state to pursue higher education, and offer various webinars and workshops throughout the year. In addition to these main buckets of work, we support the Maine Early Childhood Outdoors Network, offer an ECE job board on our website, connect our members with the latest research and news in the field, and so much more. I am sure you'll hear all kinds of things about our work as we air more episodes. But for now, I want to tell you about what this podcast is for. In this podcast, we will highlight topics that are relevant to early childhood education, particularly in Maine. We will explore policy initiatives, best practices for curriculum and teaching, the latest research in the field, and a lot more. You will hear voices from across the state and country. Every other Wednesday, tune in to connect with ECE professionals, learn more and expand your teaching practice, and hear about the latest developments in ECE. Before we officially launch on October 4th, I wanted to introduce myself to you. As I said, my name is Kaylina. I'm currently working as the communications specialist at Maine AEYC. I have over a decade of teaching experience in early childhood from age 3 to grade 2. So far, most of my classroom teaching experience has been in pre-K and kindergarten. Most recently, before joining the Maine AEYC staff, I worked as an instructional coach and curriculum designer for a place-based elementary and middle school. I have a bachelor's in inclusive teaching, outdoor and experiential learning, and early childhood education, as well as a master's of education in early childhood and elementary education. I am a true lifelong learner. I love to learn, which is why I'm excited to talk to all kinds of different people in this podcast. But my schooling also continues. I am currently a doctoral candidate in a Leadership for Change education program, which I am on track to finish this coming spring. I come from a long line of teachers in Maine. My dad is a preschool teacher. My grandmother was a middle school special education teacher. My great-grandmother was a middle and high school English teacher. And in my extended family, we have high school math teachers, high school history teachers, special education teachers, elementary teachers, and a lot more. We do a lot of teaching in my family. And outside of this work, I enjoy hiking, kayaking, spending time with my cat, reading, and making music. So I am very excited to share with all of you the amazing work happening in the ECE field in Maine and across the country. For our next episode, our first official episode, we will be learning more about the new quality improvement rating system implemented in the state of Maine. And in the coming months, we will explore topics including nature-based education, teaching about holidays, the social and cultural history of ECE, men working in ECE, and highlighting some of the great childcare programs across Maine. So, make sure you subscribe, and I can't wait for you to tune in for episode 1 on October 4th. See you then!